Hello all, welcome back to Consciousness Rising. Bit of a different video today. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and indeed I want to do further movie breakdowns and explanations of the sort of psychological themes that are going on behind the scenes. Um, I've done a bit, my last video was on symbolic literacy, so I think this will go hand in hand quite nicely with that. Um, so yeah, this is the magic of movies, shadow work in The Lord of the Rings. And this scene probably has been broke down by other people as well, because these motifs, these psychological themes and lessons, what they often do, because they're part of our collective unconscious, they show up in different ways in different films, um, and there's often like central themes around it, which I'll show. But I think this one really, really, really is so good. Not only that, because it's from one of my favourite trilogies of all time, if not, well, probably is my favourite trilogy of all time. I absolutely adore Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's work. It's very deep, it's full of archetypes and all that kind of stuff that I've kind of been leading up to. Because I've spoken about archetypes before with Carl Jung. I've spoken about the tarot and things like that. So hopefully this will show you that to engage the right brain, that's why movies and art is so important, because it can get you thinking on a deeper level. And this is just one scene of the film, and I've basically just got pictures from the scene, and I'm just gonna talk about it in a psychological context, just to show you, And I'm sure a lot of you could work this out for yourself. I don't want to be sort of talking down to people. I respect people that watch these videos, but this is just kind of my take on it. And there's many others in other films. Maybe I'll do some others another time, but yeah, let's just plow ahead with this. So, the magic of movies, shadow work in Lord of the Rings. Okay, just some basic key points about films that, as I've said, I'm not like one of these people that says throw away your TV. However, I don't watch mainstream TV. I make that very, very clear. I'm very interested in film as an art form because of the psychological depth that films can have, the esoteric teachings a lot of them can have. Yes, there is a lot of programming, but that if you really know how to look, you can find the gold as well. So yeah, and I've put there, it strengthens the right brain, and I think most people are actually left brain dominant because of our symbolic illiteracy and the way that we use language and word. A lot of us are imprisoned in the left brain more. So films is a good way, as is other art forms, to kind of strengthen that right brain, because what we want is unity consciousness. As I've always said, it's the sort of meeting in the middle, which I talked about in episode 1. It does tap into the collective unconscious through archetypes. Okay, so that's a very Jungian theme, and I might do a video later where I really break down what that actually means, because I've spoke about it a lot, and I'm aware that not everyone will understand what that is. But we share a collective unconscious, and archetypes is something it's like the DNA. It's just like a spiritual DNA, basically, of our consciousness. Films can strengthen empathy and an understanding of others, absolutely, because when you're involved in an art piece, you're seeing situations that you might not see every day, and you're seeing things from different viewpoints. And I was always, from very young, I was always very interested in film, because and I would absolutely feel what the characters were feeling, and be able to see it from their point of view, which I think actually did help me gain empathy. So art is a beautiful way to do that. And yes, it can be a spiritual experience. Absolutely. Um, Spirituality is much more than just sitting on your hands and knees and going, there's a time and a place for that. And talking to spirits, this, that, and the other. I'm not as into, I'm into who you are as a soul consciousness. And, you can be moved to tears, and I often am by art. Not just film, music as well is a huge part of my life. But film has moved me on so many different levels, and you know when you've seen something very deep that's talking to straight to your consciousness, because it'll stay with you for days, and it's almost like you're reliving the film in a heightened state of awareness. It's very hard to explain that, but I do get from certain movies this heightened state of awareness. So yeah, people that say it's all brainwashing, they don't know what they're talking about. Yes, it's there, but there are some great esoteric, and film for me actually has been deeply therapeutic over the years. I could, maybe I'll do a separate video talking about some of the films that also work on the right brain. But yeah, film to me has always been a very important part of my life. I've said that it's a way of exploring different viewpoints, and yet ultimately, going back to my previous video, it can help build and develop your symbolic literacy because films are full of symbols. It's talking to you in a visual. It's a visual format. This is what Carl Jung had to say, which I thought was really interesting. I found this the other day. The cinema, like the detective story, makes it possible to experience all the danger, all the excitement, passion, and desirousness which must be repressed in a humanitarian ordering of life. So it's this pure escapism, and being able to be involved in a story or something like that, which you can't do every day. It's imaginative. It's using your imagination. And I just thought that was really, really awesome. Awesome quote from him. Okay. So, this particular scene does involve the character of Gandalf. I'm not going to talk at depth about the characters, but he is very, very clearly an archetype. And as I've put there, the Hermit card. I mean, look at the similarities there. Um, if you can't see that, I think there's something very wrong with the way you're seeing it. But he is like a hermit. He is one that brings light and guidance and wisdom. And the Hermit card's actually one of my favourites out of the major arcana. I've always been very sort of drawn to that card. And indeed, funny enough, Gandalf is actually probably my favourite character in Lord of the Rings because he's like a seer and a sage that doesn't solve things for people as such. He guides them in the right direction. And this scene really is about him facing his shadow, which I'm going to go on to show you what. So basically, I'm not going to give the whole. By the way, there'll probably be spoilers galore here. If you haven't seen Lord of the Rings, watch that first before you watch my video. But yeah, he's clearly very hermit-like. If you look at the major arcana, it's another picture of him in this scene. They're on a quest. I'm not going to go really into details, but they're on a quest to destroy a ring, which can basically free the world from this evil that's risen up. And they get to this. They're trying to cross this mountain. In fact, I think it's the next slide ahead. Yeah. Perhaps that should have been first, but never mind. They're trying to pass this mountain, and there's another wizard in it called Saruman, the White, who has turned evil basically, and he is trying to thwart their progress. He's sending them a storm, a huge storm, of sort of snow and ice and just horrific weather conditions. And they actually get to this point up the mountain where they realise that they can't actually pass. It's way too treacherous. The hobbits, who are a race of very small people, I think Boromir, one of the human characters, says it will be the death of the hobbits. They can't continue. He knows he can't continue. However, Gandalf, he doesn't want to go under the mountain because they have this other option of going through the mines of Moria, and he's fearful to go there. Just like people are fearful to start shadow work. They don't want to look at that darkness. They don't want to confront that darker part of themselves, and he's in fear. As wise as he is, there is no perfect being. I'll be the first to say that. I'm far from perfect. I know I've got flaws and shortcomings, but we are a work in progress. He knows he does not want to go down there. However, he leaves it up to Frodo, the ring bearer, to decide, and Frodo says, no, we can't do this anymore. We've got to go through the mines. And this is his test. This is his greatest test so far in his life, probably. When they're passing through the mines, they are set. Something goes awry and they make some noise. They're trying to pass through silently, and something goes very, very wrong, and they basically awaken this beast. And Gandalf there is still very terrified, and he actually says, it gets to the point. I think Boromir, he's the character on the left, and he says to him, "What is this new devilry?" Because this is something, and he says to them, he actually says something like, "Swords are no use here. This isn't a battle that can be won with swords or fighting and screaming. This is a battle of the mind," which is what shadow work is. It's internal consciousness work to clean up the shadow, face the shadow, go do battle with it, and then integrate it. Okay, so he's saying swords are no use here. And he's basically saying that this foe is beyond all the others. This is something he alone must do. Again, that's very typical of shadow work. No one can do your shadow work for you. Yes, you may have guides and helpers, as he does on this journey, but no one can do it for you. It's his battle to face alone. He must face this foe. Only he has the power to do it because it represents a part of him. As you can see here, this beast is, wreathed in flame that completely engulfs the whole chasm where they are. And this is marvellous storytelling, by the way, not just for the psychological theme. This part of this movie is so enthralling. I remember seeing it at the cinema. I mean, I knew what it was going to be like anyway, because I had an understanding of the books. But this scene was absolutely fantastic. They nailed it. And I would say that the Lord of the Rings, are absolute masterpieces. So yeah, this foe is very, very dangerous. It's got the fire there. Um, so he basically tells the rest of them to go, to flee, to go on without him. He must try to stop this, and he is the only one that has the ability to do it because it's his own shadow, psychologically. They go across this bridge. I believe the bridge is called Khazad Dûm. Um, he sends them on ahead to basically just run the hell away because they haven't got what it takes. As mightiful as they all are, some of them are warriors, but this is beyond all of them. It's only Gandalf's battle. So they go across this very, very thin bridge, and as you can see there, it is very thin. And down there is the cavern. Below the cavern, the dark, the unconscious mind. Okay, that's what often darkness and caverns represent when they come up in storytelling. Is they represent the unconscious mind, and that's where the shadow sits. It's your part of your unconscious. It's all those repressed parts. And yeah, they get across. Basically, they get across, they get safe, and he stands his ground. He knows that he must, if he doesn't face this foe, and if he doesn't stop it in its tracks, it's going to kill all of them because it's so powerful. And that's a brilliant image there. He's standing on this bridge, this really dangerous bridge, and shadow work, it's bloody hard work. And I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking, is that the divide between the right and left brain? That could even be seen like that. I didn't even see that before. But is this bridge the bridge to the unconscious mind? But it's the bridge between the left and right. That's another thing. I've just literally picked that up while recording this. But he's going to face this shadowy beast. The beast is called a balrog. A balrog of Morgoth, who is the first Dark Lord. Like I said, I'm not going to fill this with lore of Lord of the Rings because I want people to, I just basically want to talk about the psychological themes here. But this is such a brilliant, powerful scene. The music, everything, the lighting, the special effects is just so, so good. So he stands there with his staff and his sword, and they're just about to do battle. He basically tells this Balrog, stands in its face, even though it's there, clearly more bestial and wreathed in fire and has all this power and energy, and he says, "You shall not pass, go back to the shadow." So he's saying, go back. And in a way, is he actually saying, I'm not ready for this. I don't want to face you, go away. Is he actually trying to deny that shadow work? But we'll see it as the scene progresses that is, you can't run from it forever. It will always catch up with you. Something happens in this scene that's brilliant. He shines his light. He's a wizard, and his staff light illuminates this darkness and basically tries to ward off this, threatening it, basically saying, "Go back to the shadow." He calls down the light, trying to shine light into the shadow, and that's what we must do. To unearth the shadow, you have to sit there. You have to shine your light, which light just means attention. You have to put your attention on it. You have to unearth those darker parts, those repressed parts, the parts you've cut off from yourself. He's shining his light into the shadow. He's standing brave, even if he's still terrified. And that's what it's about. It is scary. It's horrible. Getting down into the muck, the deepest, darkest parts of ourselves, the bits that have been repressed, facing, the things we've done wrong, coming to terms with it, letting go of guilt, shame. You're going to be in tears. And that's why many people won't go to therapy, especially in good therapy, because good therapy will make the unconscious conscious, and it is scary work. It's hard work. Therapy's not easy. If you're doing it properly, it's not easy. And I do deeply respect clients that come to me for this work, because I do ask them uncomfortable things, and I do often steer them in directions that perhaps they've not thought about. do get them to think about their past, their childhood, the people they've interacted with, all these things, the way they've perceived things, the way that they might need to perceive things differently to change. It requires a huge amount of effort, a colossal effort. It's the greatest battle you'll ever fight, is yourself. And that's what this represents, this scene. He's fighting parts of himself. So the battle continues, and it gets a bit more fierce because of the balrog. He's got a very big sort of fiery whip, and yeah, he sort of try. This thing will not back down. It's not going to back down no matter what he does. So Gandalf is really stuck here. He wants to defend his friends, but he also doesn't. He's not really ready for this fight, even though it's a fight that he cannot now avoid. This is it now. All the gloves are off. The mask has fallen. This is the fight that we must do with our shadow to integrate it. What he basically does is he does a spell and brings down his staff. It's a fantastic scene. Sorry, I know I keep saying that, but this is fantastic cinema. It really is. He brings the bridge down, the part that the balrog is standing on, collapsing it so it falls beneath him. He brings down his staff. The bridge, as I say, the bridge collapses, and the balrog goes with it. And he thinks, I haven't had to do battle with it. I've managed. He thinks in all, it's a way of looking at this scene. Is he thinks he's got away with it. I've managed to suppress it and push it back down into the unconscious chasm. But unfortunately, other things happen. The whip comes up, grabs him round the ankles, pulls him to this edge, and with his friends watching him as he struggles to stay on this ledge, he says, "Fly, you fools," tells them to go, because there's nothing they can do. There's nothing anyone can do. And again, like I said, when you face your shadow, you have to do it. You can do it with guidance in therapy, but you've got to do the work. And I think this scene, it does encapsulate that. It pulls him down. Down he falls into the deepest, darkest parts of the chasm, which represents the unconscious himself. Down he falls. And actually, the first film doesn't give us resolution to this scene. So we're actually left, if you don't know the story, I know many of you probably will, you're left wondering, like, what the hell happened? Is he dead? You don't know. We just don't know. And it's not till the beginning of film 2, it goes back in time to show you what you didn't see in the first film, and this battle rages on. So as they're falling, and they fall for absolute miles, he is basically on top of this thing, hitting it with a sword, striking it with everything he's got, and they fall when they eventually fall, they fall on this sort of spire or tower, and we're told later in the film, I think film 2, the two towers, we're told that this battle raged for days and days and days. And eventually, now I find this really interesting, this is something, he calls down the lightning to infuse his sword. And I was thinking about this and getting new thoughts as I was sort of looking at it. Now, swords are the intellect. Swords, when you look at the tarot, swords they're all to do with the mind, the intellect, your mental health. And, this is a battle of the mind. So he's using his mind. And I find this bit, I don't know if anyone else has pointed this out, but when he eventually stabs it to kill it eventually, or integrate it, as what that would be, the psychological thing, you integrate, you don't actually kill it, you learn to live with it and let go of the shame and become one with the shadow. He pierces it in it appears to me, I might be wrong, I could be wrong about this, but it looks like he's piercing its heart, which to me is very symbolic, because he's called down this lightning, so he's called down the higher power and the willpower or whatever into his mind, the sword, and he's pierced it in the heart, which is the emotions. And I think that's got to be on purpose. Eventually, he overcomes this foe, and and it sort of falls off the mountainside there, and they're deep, deep, deep underground, and he lies there, and actually we're told that he sort of passes out of the world, and what actually happens is, now I think it's very important at this point to point out that he is a grey wizard. There are different colours of wizards, white being the most powerful. Grey is the next, I think, and then I think it's blue. It might be blue or brown. I can't remember exactly, but that's not important at this point. The important point is there is a shift here, a change. So he transforms as a being, and I think you'll see what happens. You probably know anyway, because I mean, I hate to think that I'm talking to anyone that hasn't seen these marvelous films, but brilliant piece of camera work here as it goes into his eye to show you what he's experiencing. And he sort of goes out of time and space, and he explains all this in film too, that he goes out of time and space and he is transformed, and when he wakes up he's not the same being he used to be, because when you integrate the shadow you become more whole, you become the sage, you become, you know, more powerful than you ever were, because you're not someone that's ignorant of the shadow, you've incorporated it into your being. So when he comes round, it's a powerful, powerful scene. He is transformed. He's not the same person he was. And, you know, in real world terms, because this is obviously an allegory, in real world terms, shadow work could take years. This could take your whole life. But that don't mean it shouldn't be done. This is really, really healing work. And then, from that day on, he becomes Gandalf the White. And we know that he is different. His mannerisms are actually slightly different. And I think they actually joke when they meet back up with him. They say, this new Gandalf's a bit bossy or whatever. They sort of make aspersions to him being a bit of, you know, he has transformed because he's become a higher being. He probably, you know, might be a bit more serious at times when he needs to be. But because he's a sage now, he's the walking sage who's done the shadow work and overcome the deepest, darkest parts of himself and integrated it into his being. It's a wonderful scene. And I mean, I could talk about every single. I mean, I could break down the whole bloody trilogy. They're just so fantastic, and they're full of themes like this. And there he is. There, I think might be in the third film, because he is the true sage. He is the true warrior who has overcome the darkest part of himself by integrating it. And I just think absolutely brilliant. So, you know, let me know what you think in the comments if you enjoyed this video, and if you know, maybe want me to break down some other stuff. I'm gonna do one that I'm definitely gonna do is a film that came out a couple of years ago called Joker, and that film really was quite divisive. Any film that's divisive is always interesting to me, because there's often a reason for it, and that film is very deep, and it will go alongside my videos on psychopathy when I eventually do that. So that'll be the next one I do. But yeah, I'm so glad I got to talk about film a bit today and share it with you, and hope you got something from it. Take care, guys. See you in the next one.